Francesca Hong, yet another major Democratic candidate who's all in on abolishing the police, and is running for governor of Wisconsin, says, I think that my perfect world would be a world without prisons, because we all see the humanity in one another, and then we know nobody's disposable.
What's your response to that?
Bill Maher is having a full-blown meltdown over democratic socialism, and frankly, it's embarrassing to watch. He attacked Francesca Hong, a progressive candidate running for governor of Wisconsin, for saying that her perfect world would be one without prisons. A completely aspirational statement that any reasonable person would agree with. Who wouldn't want a world without crime, without violence, without the need for incarceration? But Maher, like so many establishment Democrats, is more interested in punching left than fighting the actual fascists taking over the Republican Party. Hong went on Caitlin Collins' show and gave a masterclass in pushback. She clarified that she doesn't support abolishing prisons or defunding the police, but she does believe in investing in the things that prevent crime: schools, mental health, addiction resources, housing, and healthcare. She also pointed out that Wisconsin incarcerates more black and brown men than any other state, and that her opponent, Tom Tiffany, is an election denier who supports a national abortion ban and has gutted healthcare and food assistance. The host, Chris on Culture, rightly calls out Maher's overreaction and points out that dreaming of a better world isn't radical, it's human.
We are less than 24 hours away from the polls closing in one of the biggest Senate primary races ahead of this November's midterm elections. Across Michigan, tonight, the challengers in the state's Democratic Senate primary made their closing pitches to voters. Congresswoman Haley Stevens rallied in Grand Rapids, selling herself as the better choice to take on the Republican Mike Rogers come November. Meanwhile, her progressive challenger, Abdul El-Sayed, closed his campaign out in Detroit as he is looking to take on Democratic Party leaders in Washington.
There is a reason why Republicans are already spending thousands and thousands of dollars meddling in this primary, trying to maybe get their preferred candidate. Look, when it comes to Michigan, I run through anyone and anything to stand up for us.
This movement of ours has proven that it can come through $80 million of spending in lies because we're willing to hold with us the truth. The work is not over. We don't know what the votes will say. Although I feel pretty good about it.
Now, that race is not the only one that could define the Democratic Party's direction heading into this November, but also into 2028. There was a big shakeup last week in Wisconsin that has highlighted progressive momentum in the governor's race there. The former Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes, became the second Democratic candidate to drop out within a span of just 2 weeks. Without naming the Democratic Socialist who is leading in those primary polls, Barnes suggested that person would likely become the party's nominee. And my source tonight is that candidate, the Democratic Socialist, Francesca Hong. And thank you for being here. When it comes to Michigan, you have not endorsed in that race. Abdul El-Sayed said he's not a Democratic Socialist. He's obviously the progressive in that race. Do you want him to win tomorrow night?
I think that Dr. Zayed represents the values of voters all across Michigan, especially when it comes to lowering healthcare costs and ensuring that people are having more money in their pockets. And so for me, seeing that momentum and his movement is incredibly encouraging, and I think his campaign has earned that excitement.
If Haley Stevens beats him tomorrow, what do you think that says about the argument that moderate Democrats are better poised to beat Republicans in November?
I think that a spirited primary is incredibly healthy for democracy. And if Haley Stevens were to win, that means that the voters came out to support their candidate. I mean, we want to make sure here in Wisconsin that this is an election that voters decide. But Wisconsin is unique. We have Ron Johnson and Tammy Baldwin. It's pretty hard to measure and understand where our voters are. But that's fortunately, we've held over 350 events, have knocked over 100,000 doors, and have a great understanding of what voters care about. And that's permanent affordability and a Wisconsin government that cares for everyone.
Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting point because as we've been watching, this trend from a political perspective, yes, a lot of Democratic Socialists have been winning in recent weeks and months in New York and Colorado. Your race is different. You're not running in deep blue turf. It is a true political battleground in Wisconsin. When voters might go to vote next weekend and look at this and say, well, the current governor hasn't endorsed you. He's endorsing the Democrat who's running against you. What's your argument for why voters should back you if the sitting governor in your party is not backing you?
He also didn't support his lieutenant governor in this term or his former lieutenant governor. I think that Governor Evers has every right to decide to put the thumb on the scale, but I'd like to remind folks that this election belongs to the voters, and the candidates have to earn their vote, put in the work. Wisconsinites work hard. They work harder than most folks all across this country, and they deserve a candidate who is working just as hard to make sure that they can earn their vote. And talking about things they care about, a moratorium on AI data centers, taxing the ultra-wealthy, fully funding our schools, and free childcare. It's been an honor of my life to be able to run for governor, and I think that our campaign is showing that Wisconsinites are coming together over the issues and our shared values of care and hard work.
In terms of Democratic Socialist, Bill Maher had some harsh words for your movement that you were part of, and that you pay dues in your state. I want you to listen to what he had to say about what he believes is happening inside the Democratic Party.
Yes, my vote is in play. I'm not voting for anyone who thinks the wrong side won the Cold War or cheers for the Intifada like it's the World Cup. It's so ironic from the people who obsess about colonization. You know what's being colonized now? The Democratic Party. Francesca Hong, yet another major Democratic candidate who's all in on abolishing the police and is running for governor of Wisconsin, says, I think that my perfect world would be a world without prisons, because we all see the humanity in one another and then we know nobody's disposable. Wow. Well, murder victims are without prisons, because we all see the humanity in one another and then we know nobody's disposable.
The police, and I won't.
I think that my perfect world would be a world without prisons, because we all see the humanity in one another and then we know nobody's disposable. Wow. Well, murder victims are.
What's your response to that?
No, the governor cannot defund the police, and I won't defund the police. And I'm not interested in abolishing prisons. What I am interested in is being serious about safety. And that means ensuring that law enforcement has the training that they need and that we're holding law enforcement that break the law accountable. It also means that we have to be tough on causes if we're going to be tough on crime, and investing in the things that we know prevent crime, like funding schools, great out-of-school programs, making sure that we have mental health resources and addiction resources, good housing, and healthier healthcare. So, and it's, those photos that he put up, I think he had to, because the real story is when you look at our campaign events and the people who are organizing repair cafes and coming together at bowling alleys and first-time voters talking to people who may not have voted in the last 6 years, there is an immense amount of joy and creativity and people feeling excited to be engaged in politics. That's what this campaign is about. And we're talking about the issues that they care about. And I think it's important that we help voters feel like they belong before we make them believe in something. And that's what's been really great about running a grassroots movement.
You said you don't support abolishing prisons. Do you still hold the view that you laid out in May, which was that in a perfect world, it would be a world without prisons?
I think talking about what may be aspirational and then understanding the role of the governor, what they can and cannot do, and what is implementable right now. These are different conversations. If we're going to be serious about public safety and ensure that everyone's human right to feel safe is what we are trying to do, we have to make sure that the system right now that is incarcerating more Black and brown men than any other state in the country right now, where we have our schools are having to go to referenda just to try to figure out if they can keep the lights on, making sure that we are delivering solutions, not focusing on labels or slogans, because governing ultimately is about making sure that we're working with our partners in communities on the issues that they care about.
Well, and obviously Tom Tiffany, who, if you win, the primary will be the Republican that you're facing. He keeps bringing up your past positions, what you've said. He said the facts are louder than campaign spin was his comment earlier. You have said you do not support the full platform of the national DSA and that you are not endorsed by DSA National. Which parts of the Democratic Socialist platform do you not support?
I think looking at where the Senate is right now, abolishing the Senate when there's an opportunity for us to take that Democratic majority is not practical. So I think that Democratic socialism, to me, is ultimately rooted in care and making sure that people have their needs met. It's about democracy, fairness, and human rights. We have I am one of the proudest Packers fans, our publicly owned NFL team. I think when I talk about potholes and making sure people pay their fair share of taxes so that we're able to fix the roads, invest in rural communities, and have fire and EMS services that are available regardless of where you live in Wisconsin. These are the things that I'm talking about, issues that voters care about. Tom Tiffany is having to go back to a lot of my old tweets because his actions and his resume, what he's done is defunded healthcare, ripped food share away from our children, supported a national abortion ban. And last time I checked, he still hasn't said who won the 2020 election. Being an election denier is an automatic disqualifier. So when you are the weakest candidate for the Republicans to put forth, it's likely that you're going to have to attack previous tweets of a candidate right now that's building a movement.
So you do support the Senate, the Supreme Court, and prisons, the existence of prisons.
Yes, I support all those things right now that are helping to ensure that there is public safety. But I do believe right now in our Supreme Court that we should be working to expand the court.
Bill Maher's meltdown over Francesca Hong is a perfect example of why establishment Democrats keep losing. Here's a guy with a massive platform, and instead of using it to attack the Republicans who are literally dismantling democracy, he's spending his time punching left at a progressive candidate for governor who dared to say she dreams of a world without prisons, an aspirational statement that any decent human being would agree with. Who wouldn't want a world without crime, without violence, without the need to lock people in cages? That's not radical, that's hope. But Maher, like so many centrists, would rather mock the left than fight the right, and it's exhausting. Hong handled the attack perfectly on Caitlin Collins' show. She clarified that as governor, she doesn't support abolishing prisons or defunding police. She supports investing in the things that actually prevent crime: schools, mental health, addiction services, housing, and healthcare. She pointed out that Wisconsin incarcerates more black and brown men than any other state, and that we need to be tough on causes if we're going to be tough on crime. That's not radical. That's evidence-based policy. And she reminded everyone that her opponent, Tom Tiffany, is an election denier who supports a national abortion ban and has gutted healthcare and food assistance for children. The contrast couldn't be clearer. The idea that wanting a better world makes you a radical is exactly why the Democratic Party keeps losing the narrative. Every single progressive policy Hong talked about, fully funding schools, free childcare, taxing the ultra-wealthy, expanding the Supreme Court, is overwhelmingly popular with the American people. But centrists like Bill Maher are so terrified of the word socialism that they'd rather attack their own than build a coalition that actually wins. Meanwhile, Republicans are running election deniers, abortion ban supporters, and fascist sympathizers, and Maher's biggest concern is a candidate who said she dreams of peace. It's pathetic. Hong also made an important point about how her campaign is actually winning. Grassroots organizing, knocking on 100,000 doors, holding 350 events, and bringing joy and creativity back into politics. She's building a movement based on care, community, and belonging, while her opponents are attacking her old tweets because they have no positive vision to offer. That's how you run a campaign. That's how you build a real base, and that's why the establishment is scared, because when people actually show up and organize, they win. So here's the bottom line. Bill Maher is wrong, and Francesca Hong is right. Dreaming of a world without prisons doesn't make you a radical. It makes you a human being who believes in the possibility of something better. And if the Democratic Party is going to survive, it needs to stop attacking its own for having hope and start fighting the real enemies. The election deniers, the abortion ban supporters, the war criminals, and the billionaires who are buying our democracy. Francesca Hong is exactly the kind of leader we need. Unapologetic, compassionate, and focused on the issues that actually matter. Bill Maher can keep melting down, but we'll keep building. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.